Hello everybody, and welcome back. Now, last time, we took on a brutal mission against the undead, and we saw how to sort of deal with a brutal difficulty mission when you have at least a few ranged options, and also how to deal a little bit with undead and their there. Now, another thing I want to check here, as you can see, we're very quickly approaching rank 2, which will give us another veteran skill. We have not used the first one, but as far as those merchant skills go, I believe I said negotiator, which is a very good one. Also, explorer I also find is a good one because it increases the chance to find highest quality missions, which just means they have a more likely chance. If you're taking on a normal mission, you might have a decent number of wordstone and loot options on the field. But we're going to continue on without those for now, as for the most part, in most people's first playthrough, they might not even realize they have those features, and they're kind of nice side buffs, but not ultimately necessary. So outside of a few distinct choices, most choices are fine, depending on what your warband needs. Okay, so we put in our points, and this one will be a little bit interesting because once again, you'll see we actually have two brutal missions. Both are scared as an option, but in this case, I'm going to say when you're faced with these kind of options, your best choice is to send out scouts. Now, of course, we got another brutal mission. This one's Wordstone Rush with exceptional. This one is okay as a brutal mission if you need to do that. And again, another brutal mission. And usually if you get a lot of brutal missions, I wouldn't recommend it very often unless you're very confident with your warband, which usually means a lot of good quality weapons. So we're going to go for a final one. Now, this one's a very poor mission, but also Wordstone Rush. Again, it's one warband scared. Both missions are a fine choice here. This one's a little bit more greedy, but if you do win these missions, you end up with a lot more loot collected. But this is a good time to discuss why maybe doing a brutal mission might not be worth it. Yes, you could get extra loot, which is a good thing. More loot means more chances you get the wordstone to make turn-ins, you get more loot, so that you might get a blue quality item for your team. Both are very possible. However, the other side of that is often you'll find in brutal and deadly missions, due to the nature of the AI having a lot more power versus you, there's not a lot of wiggle room to try and go for the secondary objective. That sometimes is a little bit more critical when you're trying to get started out, as getting secondary missions means more XP. And the sooner you get XP on your units, the higher level. And getting your units to around level 5 is often a really good breakpoint I found, where the AI kind of sprinkles their points a little bit randomly with what they're doing and will not dedicate their points into the stats they really need specific. So in this case, I would suggest definitely going for this normal mission, despite the chance you could be scared. This one is an even deployed on both sides. It is Wordstone Rush, and another important thing as well is the higher difficulty missions can mean that you have to collect more, in the case of Wordstone Rush, of the loot out there, because there's just so much more of it. So we will go for this normal mission here, even at the chance we're scared, just to be a little bit safer. We did get some blue quality items as well, but what I'm hoping to show here today is that...
A ghastly manifestation frightened
Okay,
your
so we're the one that's scared. Again, that's not a big deal, but the main thing I want to show today
but before the warriors
is
can regroup,
that as you start to get higher quality items, I believe we're fighting Skaven. Indeed we are. Now the Skaven, the way I told that at a glance was that you could see that they have a lot of high initiative units, and oftentimes when you see that, that is Skaven. They often build their units with a lot of initiative, They keep light armor because their units have a very high maximum to their agility stat when leveling up, and they will often utilize that. And opposed to fighting the undead, the Skaven are kind of the reverse problem. They are much, much harder to catch them alone just due to the nature of how far they can move. With that knowledge, it still doesn't change too much of what your plan should be. You should definitely try to bait them in. One potential idea that you can do when versing the Skaven, because this is another part, and I don't know if this was for balancing or for lore reasons, but both work in our favor. The Skaven are more likely to go for Wordstone immediately. Some warbands will push towards your cart. Skaven are less likely to do so and will always tend to rush Wordstone. They can stop to pick scavenge points, potentially, but they really do want to grab Wordstone. So what we're going to try to do is go into this building here. This may not work the way I want it to. Now, this will be an interesting one here, because we really want to get up the stairs, but we need to use the typical strategy where you have a lot of clearage. And what I did was, yes, my movement should have me. The most logical would be to go straight through the door and then try to go up the stairs. But you'll find if I go here, that one's a little bit off, and you can always go back, and that is an important thing to keep in mind, is your ability to redirect yourself. Is you take that angle just to set up a spot here to have a centralized movement point, which lets us go up here and really check the floor for any loot. Now, the loot is all the way up there. That is a little bit unfortunate. We could have him climb up there, but we also see that the Skaven saw us, so climbing up there would not be a good decision now in this scenario. So we're going to back up to our start here, and from what I'm seeing here, the Skaven are spawning near their cart, so we're going to want to meet them somewhere that is beneficial to us. Now, when I typically do that, what I like to do is I like to pick open areas that let us get them to see us sooner, and then they charge at you. With this being the case, they oftentimes will just walk into a really good choke point for you. Not a whole alleyway, but usually like the fence here, you can keep your warband here and better properly utilize it if you have ranged units. Another good spot is this right here, if possible. Now, in this spawn, not so much, as it's not in a good position for us to take them into it and use our range against them. But if this little building here was, say, here, or even up here, you could possibly hide your ranged units up there and then have your melee also up there to kind of block off this ramp if they were to come up there, as there's nowhere to climb up, so the AI cannot utilize a flooding technique where they just kind of throw all of their bodies at you and hope to take you down. Well, not necessarily take down your warband, but more so to cause damage to you. And not typically a lot of damage, but the damage I mean is if they get a random crit, they've already won the day, as they now have a unit of yours that is unable to act for the next mission, which is never helpful. Okay, so we're not seeing many Skaven, and I was also told to mention this as it was something I forgot, and something I myself often just kind of deal with as the situation arises, but do keep that in mind. If you look at the top left, you will see that it says Noble's Quarter, Map 1. And what that's telling us is that this is the map variant of what they've done here. So a major thing of the changes here is a lot of buildings will be changed. There's a distinct number of changes that can happen, but I do not have them memorized. There will be carts in different places. There is, say, this big building here. You will see it frequently in some of the maps. This little area here can be closed off. If there's a map with bridges, they can be broken, sets of stairs. There are many changes that can happen, and that is something to keep in mind. That you can't always expect the mission to look the same. So never get too comfortable with a map knowledge, we'll say. Okay, so we're just going to let them take their turn. And you can see a lot of their warband is a lot faster than us. Now, an interesting thing here is you'll see that one of the Skaven is actually very, very low on initiative. Often, with Skaven having lower initiative than most of your units, they'll typically tell you that they're in heavy armor. Which is good news, because that means it's a Skaven that you can somewhat get away from. Though, do keep in mind, it still is the chance here that they are not in that and are just using an item with low initiative, specifically weapons. And also keep in mind that a -2 to the heavy armor for a Skaven only affects them down to the same movement speed we have. Now, what I did there was I used perception, and the reason for that is to look for traps. If you have a free moment to do that, it never hurts to kind of look for those to better set up a situation for yourself. So we know there's a trap up there. There's a trap back here. We've gone over this in a previous map, and we're going to do it again here, hopefully. We're going to try and bait them into charging through a trap. Now, that can be sometimes difficult, depending, like in these, when they're wide open and you do not see the whole warband. Don't try to utilize those that are out of position, as much as you may want to. Okay, so what we're going to do is we know that's there. We're not going to be able to use it this turn, but we will definitely be using it in the future. Sometimes units will spawn up here, and sometimes jumping from a higher point will be a better option. Even though the height will make your chances to succeed lower, it's easier if your agility stat is low enough to just take the damage and be done with it, as the height does not affect the damage as far as I have seen. At least not enough to be noteworthy that you should avoid doing. Okay, so now we have the leader. And my main plan for this mission is to really get our group sort of built up here. And then I definitely want to go and get some of this word stone. We need to grab 8 of it. Now, if we look at what's on the map, you can see there's 1, 2 here. But then a lot of it is down here. There is 14 total. Doesn't leave us a lot of wiggle room. So we can only miss out on 6 of it, which we're going to assume those 2. And then probably those, meaning we would have to get in to grab these. That seems pretty difficult to pull off. I would almost say in this scenario, it may just be better to really let them attempt to grab as much as they can. And then try to loot it off of their units after you've taken them out of combat. Another thing to keep in mind is do look if it's in a building. There's actually 2 here. We will probably grab those 2. I do not know if I will send a unit in there to grab those. That is a good question. Sometimes it's worth it, depending. I will say if it takes you more than 1 turn to go and grab the item, it may be better just to give up on said item, unless you know there is safety there. Now, this will entirely depend on the Skaven's move if they decide to charge and attack us. Odds are unlikely in this scenario, because sometimes with the Skaven, what happens is they they will see them. They will see a unit of yours. And you will walk back out of sight. So technically, they have seen you. And this will depend on the warband as well. But their choice whether to start rushing towards your warband or not is always, based on a few factors. The major one being the warband's faction.
A new round has
Typical
started.
one for that is, I would say, mostly, and this may be a strange one, but sisters I often find are the ones to charge towards your warband. Now, he may be able to make the distance here, and he may very well could have, but he chose not to. And I do believe that is because there was Wordstone just close enough, and there hasn't been an engagement yet. If you are fighting any units, you'll find that they are definitely hesitant to fight you as the Skaven. I think what we're going to want to do here, given what they've done, we're going to check the road here, see if he showed up here. He actually went to here. They unfortunately didn't pick up any Wordstone. I do not believe he's going to climb up to pick up any. If he was going to do that, he would have went this way. So the Skaven are definitely ignoring the Wordstone. We're going to want to set up a good area here to fight them. So I do not feel that this place is great for our archers to get a lot of value out of it versus the Skaven, but we don't see most of them. So they may be hiding in this building here. That is the most likely scenario. So that means we will get a little bit surprised with them attacking here. But we will keep with the plan here, and we'll just take up a position here and hopefully be able to bait them into charging into our front line that will have that trap in front of them. Now, this unit is very valuable to our team just due to the double maces, so we would like to utilize him. And what we're going to do here, we're going to set him to an ambush point right here. And the reason for that is to really force them to approach that trap in front of us. They could choose to ignore it and go for him as he is a low level. However, given that it is normal difficulty, this isn't hugely a negative if they choose to go for him. It is still Mordheim, but a unit doing normal damage versus them doing 30% is a very big swing of damage when the fates of your soldiers are determined within a single turn or perhaps two in most cases. Now, late game, you will be able to build units that can sit there and take on many enemies, but do not count on this for a good bit of time and not before you have a good plan with how you're going to build each of your characters. A typical one that I've found is I often build my henchmen to have a fair bit of toughness, strength, and a lot of parry, and usually they end up in heavy armor. And it often makes the henchman able to just clog an area in a way that is hard for the AI to deal with. We're going to put him in front of this one here because he is more likely to be charged if they were to attack. They may yet choose to attack the leader, but the odds of that are substantially lower. What we'll do is we'll just put him here with a parry stance to really just block up the road here. Now, they could try to run around us and get there. The reason I've kind of foregone grabbing any wordstone here is I really do believe that the AI are going to attack very quickly with their leader, and I think he will be very much alone. And in any case that you can get their leader alone, or any hero, it is worth it. Now, it's also another important factor when you're getting to these kind of fights here where you're starting to get blue gear, or even purple gear. I have had moments where the shop at the beginning had a purple quality
round has
weapon,
started.
And it is important to keep a look for that. Now, we did miss our Overwatch, but that is okay. That is a second one, 23 damage. I'm not sure who he's favoring here, probably the hero, but he got ambushed anyway, and this is actually beneficial. Not that he got chosen to be fought, but he actually caught him on the corner here, which makes it a lot harder for anyone to show up. So this leader is definitely in a bad situation. In fact, he is in a very bad situation as he's now out of moves and used up all of his offensive points. So we will attack him. His only chance to survive this now is that their hero gets here and stops our hero. The odds are very, very unlikely as he is very far away. And that is why I kind of kept this position here. I think it also bears repeating once you start to learn the AI a little bit more and what they like to value. As this hero has taken a bit of damage, he is now our lowest health unit, meaning if the AI was ever given a choice to attack across our entire warband, he will be chosen first. So we can use him as a very good lure, we will say, to get them stuck in some very unfortunate ambushes, and that is what we're going to do. Now, we did miss this 83%. There wasn't much of a choice there. We have to take it. Okay, so he did manage to dodge the second one, and that is unfortunate. Now, here's an interesting idea, is sometimes if they're in a poor location, if they were to end the turn there, what you can do is just delay their turn. If you think within that time of them delaying, you can have someone take care of that leader and put them in a better location. However, he's at 92 health. That's more than enough to survive at least another wave of attacks, if it does come to that. So what we're going to do here, I do not think we'll get the shot here, but we'll try for it. We will try to aim at him here, and then we will reload and take it over. And we were very lucky there, hitting the 80%. I mean, I know an 80% is a higher value, but I often find the best policy there is to not rely on your ranged units to make hits, especially early on when the melee are fighting. Okay, so what we're going to want to do here is loot that unit. I doubt he will have anything that we want. The Skaven are one of the warbands that you often will not want to see when versing other warbands. Not because they are hard to beat. In fact, sometimes they can be the easiest depending on how their charges go. But oftentimes, Skaven will not drop loot that you're really hoping to get. So it is important to keep that in mind. The problem is their henchmen and even their leaders do have weapon limitations. He was actually very poorly geared. Okay, well, we don't get much out of that, but what we're going to do is continue the plan here. In fact, I have a slightly better plan here. What we're going to do is we're going to set him here, and he is going to take a dodge stance. Because him standing here looks like a very poor location, and it very much is. It is a very, very poor location. However, we are trying to set it up so next turn we can bait the AI into walking around him to try and attack the other one, and he gets ambushed. Now, I think what we're going to do is we should have one more henchman that can take up that mantle, which will be this one right here, who has our blue axe that we got with that brutal mission. We are going to utilize him. We could utilize our leader here, and he might be a better situation for that, but I like him being able to stand here and stop them from reaching our ranged units. Because we are going to take a free shot here as it is available, and it is a lot of damage, especially on normal difficulty. So a 94%, we are 1% off from max hit chance. Not often you will miss them, but it is Mordheim. We will end our turn there. Now, we are just going to take him, and we're going to do what looks really strange, but we are going to put him on ambush stance. One important thing to keep in mind is when you're versing the AI, an ambush out in the open like this, the AI will win and will charge you before your ambush goes off. In almost every scenario that this can happen,
a new round has started.
There is a slight, and I mean very slight, situation where you, as the that is an interesting move from him. But you, as someone who is taking their turn, can charge someone who is ambushing if you have the same movement range. It is very slight and very, very hard to time it. In the many times I've tried it, have always missed it. I don't know if it's just a 50-50 shot. You can click it quick, but the AI do land that. Not always, but most times. You will probably not get that, and with Skaven, that is impossible as they have extra movement. Okay, so this unit here is going to take a little bit of damage, but that is okay. Now that we have him pretty much here and out of points, we're actually going to take a little bit of time here. I believe we would be better taking care of him. Yes, that is what we're going to do. We're going to try twice here on 70%, as if we take a look at the henchman, he only has 3 points, and he is actually wielding a one-hander, which is a spear, which tells me that he does not have anything I need to be too concerned about damage-wise. So we're going to take 2 shots here. An unfortunate miss, but these do happen. So we're going to reload. If your characters ever disappear, which is a strange issue that has happened on my newer system when I built it. I'm not quite sure why. Moving the camera around seems to fix it. Okay, so we're going to take a second shot, and we missed twice on 70. It does happen. But again, it is Mordheim. These things happen. Now, we take a look. He has actually been... He's been hit once for 10 damage. I believe that would be Wordstone. We are going to try for that. He is actually a very evasive rat. Missed a lot of our swings here. But that's okay. Should be able to get 2 more units on top of them. Though he will probably get his turn beforehand. And that's okay. We will deal with that as well as we need. We'll probably run around to attack the other one. Well, our plan that was set for the hero actually sprung on him. These moments will happen as well if they walk into it. And you can see how... Well, the only word I can have for that is absurd that damage number is. It was a lot of damage. with that in mind, we'll just check his pockets just to see. Now he has a shield and a spear. Nothing really necessary. This is an unfortunate part of it, is when you fight the Skaven, their ranged weapons are shurikens. Okay, so we are going to take him. So at this point, our chances of utilizing that trap have diminished. There's not a high chance we're going to get that to go off. So what I'm going to do is just kind of set him here with an ambush. This could fail and they choose to attack him, though the odds are unlikely. This hero here is about to have a very bad time, as he is now going to get surrounded. And do not forget, we also have a blue spear. Now he can utilize 2 attacks with this blue spear by first taking a charge at a 72%. We have been missing them, but it is still worth it in this scenario just because he doesn't need to have a spare offensive point when he parries, which is why I'm choosing to charge. And we did get the hit for 41 damage. That is very good. And we will go for a second swing. There is a very low chance here that if I did hit him and we rolled the highest range, he would be down this turn. That didn't happen, but that is okay. That was to be expected. So we have slight question here, and we will give that a look. What we're going to do is move him up here just a little bit. As you can see, his chance to hit is far, far too low. And what he can do instead is set up an overwatch here, mostly out in the open, but his chances of being attacked are low. They will still choose to attack him if need be, but I do not believe that is a concern. So we are going to, and this is another thing you can do, is if you can manage to get a charge on a target, see what the hit percentage is, and that will tell you exactly what the hit percentage would be if you didn't charge. Now, unfortunately, we can't get it here, so I'm going to walk this unit into it and see if he can get a hit. It's at 74%, which is good enough. We will take that option. And we did get the hit. That has removed their leader. One very unfortunate thing here, also with a positive, is that he had a cluster. The other part of this is that taking him out is putting them at very, very low morale. So there is a chance they will leave. They should have 1 hero left, so there is a chance they will stay. We will just have to see what happens, which means most likely our secondary isn't going to happen. But we will take this cluster, as a cluster is a huge benefit for our team. Okay, so what we're going to do is just move him back, as he does have a high quality item, so we do not want to lose that, and he is not exactly a defensive character. Okay, so we're going to see if the Skaven managed to stay. Unfortunately not. But you can just see how well that mission went. We only took out 3 of them. Skaven are a very low morale warband, so do keep that in mind. We took out 1 henchman, a hero, and a leader, but that is all it takes for them. Now, the main important thing to note from this mission is that you can just see how strong those blue weapon upgrades are. The blue weapon upgrades are just so valuable in your terms of damage output that there's no difference. Or there's no question it is the best upgrade path. If the option is available, you will want to put those weapons on. Now, unfortunately, we didn't get to see the thing I really wanted to show in this case, but because the enemy warband will often meet you with your warband rank.
Field of battle is a great
You are
feeling.
progressing nicely. The gods are with you.
Okay, let me just let them get their talks out of the way. with the warband matching your points, what will often happen is they will also start bringing in blue weapons. This is really good for you. Now, they will do a lot more damage. Do keep that in mind. But once the damage numbers start coming up and you start getting more points on your characters to be more consistent with their hit chances, you will utilize that damage a lot better than they will. Don't get me wrong, they will absolutely take some of your characters down just by the will of the dice, we will say. The main benefit is you can take their weapons and their shields. Unfortunately, you cannot get their armor off of them. So if you do start to notice the percentages, which they are able to be noted, you cannot take them. Okay, so now with that mission over, you can see he didn't take anyone out. This was ultimately I don't want to say a poor mission, but it was very generic, no big advantage there. We did get a cluster, which was a nice find, but we're basically getting 2 XP per character, which is a very low reward. Now, also with his level to level 3, and I will say level 3 is usually where leaders and heroes start to, for me, I like to call them stable. And what I mean by stable is they get that offensive point. And what that means is for heroes, I like to give them, because of that extra offensive point, they have 6. Which means now you can do one of 2 things, and both are very viable options. If you need a hero to stay in the front lines and deal with a lot of problems, they can walk up with a shield and a one-hander, and they can attack 3 times per turn. It is very, very powerful. Alternatively, if you have good blue 2-handers, they can now charge into combat and then still take a second swing. Both options are good depending on how quickly you want to take out the enemy units as soon as they show up. It is a good idea to utilize both and have kind of a mixture depending on how many melee units you're using. But the more important thing to keep in mind is that you want to use your higher quality weapons as much as you can, as that makes the difference more so than utilizing your offensive weapons. A blue spear swinging 3 times will outweigh the triple swinging basic weapon, just based off the stats. Now that is a little bit of an over-exaggeration. That is a lot of points, but it does make the difference. So do keep that in mind.
Remarkable.
And he is the same. However, we do not have a new advancement for him. He could utilize the blue weapon now and could shoot it twice, which is possible. However, I'm going to say no to that only because the problem with firearms is their extra cost. Firearms will cost 3 per shot, and he could shoot it twice, but their reload is also pretty substantial. Him being able to take a turn and shoot 3 times is a pretty big deal, and it also means that our henchman can also use the gun, and he's not losing too much. Now, I could give him a bow. That wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but he did not get the extra points yet, so we're not too worried about it. When he has 4 points, if we have a blue bow, perhaps, but we're just not there yet. And we'll see, he got to level 2. Still at level 3, so he is a perfect candidate to keep the axe.
Your warband is getting stronger.
So here's an important thing. Another level, which means we get 1 more henchman slot for the warband, which is fantastic. That means we can now have 5 henchmen. We gain a reserve slot. What you're aiming for is level 5. Level 5 is when you get all of your spots here available. And also, at a certain point, you will unlock your 3rd hero choice. Every warband has 3 heroes you can choose from. They only let you choose 2 from the start. Not quite sure the necessary reason for that. as they are not typically somehow better units. Some cases they are, but... Okay, so let's just take a look here. We're going to see if we got any points. And you'll see as well when you're dealing with low amounts of XP, sometimes you just don't get that many points to put in. I didn't see any new weapons either. That's an important thing to keep an eye on. Is sometimes with your random loot at a mission end can be very good. So we actually have some interesting choices here. As we have our 5th slot available, you can choose to go with a 4th melee henchman. This is not a bad choice. It really depends on what you're looking for here, where you want to utilize your ranged damage. Sometimes you can just choose to not go with ranged damage. That is also a very viable option. It is an option sometimes to go all ranged, though I would not recommend this as it's not designed to really work that way in the game. I would not utilize more than 4 ranged units, because it becomes a little bit more punishing if your positioning is not that great to have more than 2 or 3 ranged units. The other thing with ranged units is that you do have to slow up a little bit just to utilize them better, which can be bad if you're going for secondary missions. So, in this case, we could go with another ranged henchman. It's not too bad. It really depends on the other heroes. Let me see here quickly. If we did unlock the other hero, we did not yet. I do believe that is rank 5. Now, you can utilize some of these heroes. They are not bad choices. In fact, the Smuggler has a lot of very good choices, and so does the Wolf Priest. However, these are available for all warbands on the, I will say, the human side, as opposed to the Chaos. It is Order and Chaos, if you do not know the names of the sides. But as far as that's concerned, they are decent units. This is a very heavy melee unit, despite him being a spellcaster. He wants to be melee. In fact, he cannot be ranged, but he is not a damaging spellcaster type. You can build him that way, but if you want that, it is much better to use Warlock. However, casters are very scary to utilize. And I think another important note here is with spellcasters, they, for me anyway, are often not that easy to utilize, and they're very costly. They don't do too much great things until, I would say, around the level 5 mark, if you want them to do damage. Now, to keep a good side comparison, some casters, specifically Sisters of Sigmar and the Chaos, they come with pre-built casters as their leaders, and they have very powerful spells as their starter, which are buffs. Buffs are a completely different animal as terms of like using them. Their buffs are very powerful as they buff melee damage. That is the main benefit of casters early, is that they can utilize that. The other thing that also does line up with casters is that spells do ignore armor. So if you're fighting a lot of heavy armored units, well, spellcasters are a decent answer. Though casting always comes with risks, so do keep that in mind if you want to utilize them. I would not recommend overcommitting on casters, as stacking many casters can often lead to you getting a lot of punishment from the dice. The main big one is the punishment that gives you open wounds, which will not often affect them. However, them being out an extra mission is never a great time. Okay, and a thing I like to do is always check the shop after each mission. If you don't keep an eye on your number of days left, I like to do that. Now, there are two options here. Here is a crossbow that's also sometimes a decent call. There's a handgun, and what we're actually going to do here is I'm going to buy it. It is a very basic item, but it is worth it in this case because what I will do is actually buy another ranged unit. And the reason I go with the handgun is, again, he only has 3 offensive points here, which is hard to utilize. And what we can do is give him the handgun, and it will cost 3 strategy points to reload and also 3 to shoot it, which is perfectly lining up with what he's going to do anyway. Now, another thing I like to also do is if you have extra maces for your archers, if they ever ultimately get stuck and cannot escape from melee combat, a mace is their best bet, as it gives the hit chance, and they're not going to have a lot of weapon skill. Okay. I think that'll do it for this week here. And as you can see, we've only gone through 2 missions, I believe, since our previous story mission, and now we're going to get another one.
A new challenge is in sight.
Which actually wants a rating of 900. And you can read this. These actually will be talked over again, so reading this can sometimes be useful if you're planning to ignore the mission and you're anxious on what it is before you actually go. But if we take a look here, this one is the temple mission. That is a very fun mission. This mission, I believe, also comes with an impressive unit, which was the big rat that we faced previously. Now, again, what I will say is it would probably be more wise to wait until you're rank 5 to really start tackling them. Just so you have as many offense points to use as possible, and it gives you a lot more chance to get blue tier equipment, which is going to be a lot better than what you're going to get out of story missions. They do begin to start having more blue gear, but it takes a good few missions there. There are 8 in total. So we may wait on that mission just to see what happens, mostly because we just got this new unit. He is very, very fragile. He actually has 106, which is not too bad. As you can see, these characters have quite a bit of health. He does as well. Those first few levels are very critical to making them a little bit more stable, and that is why I say about level 5. At that point, a lot of characters will begin to have around 175 to 200 health, if not more, depending on your toughness. You can see he's already at 171. It's often a little bit safer, in my opinion. However, that is your choice on that matter. I may begin that mission a little bit early, just for the sake of the tutorial, but we will see. Either way, that is going to be it for the video here. So thanks everybody for hanging out and watching, and hopefully we'll catch you in the next one.